Imagine for a moment that you're standing in front of a mirror in the middle of the night. The room is dimly lit, illuminated only by a flickering candle. You stare at your reflection, but something feels wrong. The eyes staring back at you aren't entirely your own. There's something ancient behind them, something you've ignored for years. A part of yourself you've left starving while feeding everyone else. Have you ever wondered what happens to that part of you each time you say yes when your soul is screaming no? What happens deep within your psyche when you keep giving until there's nothing left of you? Stay with me until the end of this journey, because I'm about to reveal a truth I discovered in the deepest layers of the human mind. A truth that not only transformed my own life, but also reshaped our understanding of human suffering and the path toward wholeness. My name is Carl Gustav Jung, and for over half a century, I explored the labyrinths of the unconscious. I worked with thousands of patients, analyzed countless dreams, and immersed myself in the mythologies of ancient civilizations. Yet, the most profound lesson I ever learned did not come from books or laboratories. It came from pain, my own, and the pain of those who arrived at my office completely depleted, empty, having given so much of themselves that they became shadows of who they once were. I remember a woman vividly. Let's call her Anna. She came to see me sometime in the 1920s. Anna was a devoted wife, a loving mother, an obedient daughter. Her entire life revolved around the needs of others. She woke up before dawn to prepare breakfast, spent her days attending to her husband and children, visited her aging parents every afternoon, and fell asleep exhausted every night, without a single moment left for herself. When she entered my office, her eyes were dim, lifeless. She said something I never forgot. "Dr. Jung, I feel like a dry well. For years, everyone has drawn water from me, and I let them, always with a smile. But now, when I look inside, there's nothing left. I don't even know who I am without them." This is the critical moment in every human life. The moment when exhaustion becomes so deep, you can no longer ignore it. It's not just physical fatigue, it's something far more devastating. It's soul exhaustion. The moment your psyche cries out that you've betrayed something essential within yourself. And believe me, the psyche always collects its debt. Always. Before we go further, I want you to know something. At the end of this story, I will share with you a specific practice, a technique I developed over years of clinical work that can help you reconnect with that forgotten part of yourself. It's a powerful tool for transformation. But for it to truly work, you must first walk with me through the depths. You must understand how you reached this point of emptiness and what psychological forces brought you here. You see, through my work, I discovered that we all wear masks. I called this mask the persona. It is the face we present to the world, the role we play to be accepted, loved, and respected. The devoted mother, the tireless worker, the always available friend, the accommodating partner. These masks aren't bad. They are necessary for us to function in society. The problem begins when the mask sticks so tightly to your face that you forget there's a face underneath. When the persona devours your true self. Anna had completely lost touch with her real self. During our sessions, I would ask her what she liked to do, what made her feel alive, and she would fall silent. Not because she didn't have answers, but because she had forgotten how to listen to her own inner voice. For decades, she had lived solely through the needs and desires of others. Her persona had consumed everything. This is where something I discovered, something that revolutionized psychology, comes into play, the shadow. But don't rush ahead. The full revelation of how to work with your shadow will come later. For now, let me explain what it is. The shadow is everything you've rejected within yourself, everything you've labeled as unacceptable, selfish, wrong, or inappropriate. It's the part of you that wants to say no, that longs to set boundaries, that wants to rest, that dares to dream its own dreams. When you spend your life giving everything to others, your shadow grows in the dark. It becomes larger, hungrier, more desperate to be seen. And the shadow never stays silent forever. It manifests, sometimes as sudden bursts of anger that seem to come from nowhere, sometimes as physical illness that forces you to stop, and often as deep depression or the kind of soul-deep exhaustion I mentioned earlier. The psyche has its own mechanisms of compensation. When you consciously ignore your needs, your unconscious will find increasingly dramatic ways to get your attention. Think about it. How many times have you reached the breaking point before finally saying, enough? How many warning signs did you ignore? The headaches, the sleepless nights, the irritability, the constant feeling of emptiness. Each of these is a message from within, a signal from the depths of your being calling you back home. Because what you call fatigue might actually be the cry of your unlived life, the part of your soul that's been silenced, waiting patiently for you to remember who you truly are. All of these are messages from your unconscious, desperate cries saying, you are abandoning me. You are betraying me. Stop before it's too late. I worked with Anna for several months. The first dreams she brought to our sessions were deeply revealing. She dreamt she was sitting in a theater, among the audience, watching a play. On the stage was a woman who looked exactly like her, but brighter, more alive. That woman was dancing, laughing, doing things Anna had never allowed herself to do. And in the dream, Anna could only sit and watch, separated by the invisible wall between the audience and the stage. I told her this dream was her psyche showing her the distance between her exhausted persona and her true, vibrant self, waiting to be lived. Now let me ask you something, and I want you to really stop and reflect on this. How much of your life have you truly lived for yourself? Not out of obligation, not out of guilt, not from fear of disappointing others, but purely, genuinely for you. If your life were a movie, would you be the main character or just a secondary one in everyone else's story? That question hurts, I know, because many of us were trained from childhood to believe that loving ourselves is selfish, that putting our needs first is cruel, especially if you're a woman or if you were raised within certain cultures or religions. You were taught that the highest virtue is self-sacrifice, constant, endless self-denial. But here's the paradox I discovered through my work. You cannot give what you do not have. You cannot truly love others if there is no love within you. You cannot nourish from an empty well. Love born out of exhaustion is not love. It's a desperate transaction, an unconscious attempt to fill your own emptiness through the approval and need of others. And deep down, everyone feels it. The recipients of that drained love sense the weight of it, the invisible debt, the heaviness of sacrifice. With Anna, the breaking point came when her body simply gave up. She developed what doctors called severe chronic fatigue. She couldn't get out of bed. For weeks, she was immobilized, unable to fulfill any of the roles she had chained herself to. But something extraordinary began to happen. In that forced stillness, her dreams started to change. She dreamt of wild gardens, of free animals, of versions of herself running barefoot through open fields. Her psyche was using illness as an escape route, as a doorway to release her from the prison she had built. This is a crucial concept in my work, the process of individuation. Individuation is the path toward becoming who you truly are. It is not selfishness. It is the most sacred work of your life. It is the integration of every fragment of your being, even the ones you've rejected, until you become whole, authentic, alive. The exhaustion that comes from giving everything is not a weakness. It is a threshold. It is your psyche pushing you toward awakening, toward individuation. It's the moment when you finally have the chance to ask, who am I when I'm no longer being what everyone expects me to be? When Anna finally faced this question, something remarkable happened. At first, there was resistance, fear, guilt, panic. She told me, "But Dr. Jung, what kind of mother would I be if I start thinking about myself? What kind of wife?" And there it was, the voice of conditioning, the voice of the persona defending its territory. I asked her another question. What kind of mother are you when you're empty? What are you teaching your children about love when you erase yourself completely? That question shook her deeply. She realized she had been teaching her daughter that love means self-destruction, that goodness means disappearance. Is that the legacy we want to leave behind? We began with small steps. I asked her to dedicate just 30 minutes a day to something only for her. Not something productive, not something useful to others, something that nourished her soul. At first, she didn't even know what to do with that time. 30 minutes terrified her, more than 30 hours of work, because in silence, in her own company, she had to face everything she'd been running from. Her emptiness, her resentment, her pain. But slowly, something began to awaken. She started painting again, something she had loved in her youth but had abandoned long ago. In the beginning, her paintings were dark, filled with symbols of confinement and loss. But gradually, brighter colors began to emerge, images of doors opening, of women stepping from darkness into light. Her dreams evolved too. In one particularly powerful dream, she was inside an old, abandoned house. As she explored, she found a hidden door behind a wardrobe. When she opened it, she discovered entire rooms she never knew existed, filled with treasures, beauty, and light. That dream symbolized the discovery of the self, her true essence, hidden all along behind the walls she had built. Now, understand this. The journey is not easy. It's not a single decision, but a lifetime of rediscovery. When you begin to love yourself after years of depletion, resistance will come. You'll feel it inside as guilt, and you'll meet it outside as rejection from those who were comfortable with your constant sacrifice. Because when you change, the dynamics of your relationships inevitably change, and not everyone will celebrate that. Anna's husband, for instance, didn't understand at first why she needed time alone. He was used to a wife who was always available. Her children complained. Even her parents expressed concern, wondering if something was wrong with her because she stopped visiting every day. But here's the beauty of it all. When you remain steadfast in your commitment to yourself, something magical unfolds. The relationships that are genuine evolve and grow stronger. The ones that thrived on your exhaustion begin to fade. And although that loss can hurt, it is necessary. Because as you step into your authenticity, you no longer attract people who love the version of you that serves them. You begin to attract those who love the truth of who you are. And that ultimately is the miracle of individuation, when your outer life begins to reflect your inner awakening. When your relationships, your work, your choices all become aligned with your true essence. It is the quiet revolution of returning home to yourself and finally realizing that the love you had been seeking all along was yours. Her husband learned how to cook. Her children learned to be more independent. Her parents began to cherish the time they spent with her in a deeper way, because it was no longer something taken for granted. And here lies one of the most beautiful paradoxes in the process of individuation. When you stop giving everything away, when you learn to love and take care of yourself, your capacity to love others deepens in the most genuine way. It's no longer a love born from duty or codependence. It's a love that flows from a well that is already full. It's a love that expects nothing in return because you already feel complete within yourself. Let me share something from my own experience. I, too, had to go through this process. For years, I lost myself in my work, in my research, in the endless needs of my patients. There were moments in my life when my mental health completely broke under the weight of my own unintegrated shadow, what others called a nervous breakdown. I came to understand as an urgent call from my unconscious, a desperate attempt to make me stop and look inward. During that dark period, I had vivid dreams and powerful visions. My psyche began to reveal ancient symbols, universal archetypes, images that belong to the collective unconscious shared by all human beings. And in that descent into my own psychological underworld, I discovered something essential. Until you integrate your shadow, until you recognize and embrace every part of yourself that you've rejected, you can never be whole. You can never truly become who you are meant to be. This is the secret few people understand. Wholeness doesn't come from perfection. It comes from integration. It's not about erasing your dark or negative aspects. It's about recognizing them, understanding them, and finding conscious and healthy ways to express them. Do you remember that I said I would save a revelation for the end? We're getting there. But before that, there's something you must understand. The kind of self-love I'm speaking of is not narcissism, nor self-centeredness. It's something far deeper and, in fact, profoundly spiritual. It's the realization that you are a unique manifestation of the universal self, that your life has a purpose only you can fulfill, and that betraying yourself is, in the end, a betrayal of the divine essence that lives within you. When you reach that point of exhaustion, when you finally break, you're faced with two choices. You can collapse entirely, fall into bitterness and despair, or you can recognize that your exhaustion is not your enemy, but an invitation from your psyche to begin the most important journey of your life, the journey back to yourself. Anna accepted this invitation. Her path was not linear. She stumbled, she doubted, she fell back into old patterns many times, but each time she found her way back to her center more quickly. Each time she recognized sooner when she was betraying herself. And over time, her entire life transformed. In one of our last sessions, she told me something that deeply resonated with me. Dr. Jung, now I understand that all the time I spent caring for others while neglecting myself wasn't love. It was fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear of not being loved. Fear of being alone. But now that I've learned to love myself, now that I've committed to myself, I've realized I was never truly alone. When you commit to the process of individuation, you discover that the person you've been seeking in others, the one you believed could fill your emptiness, has always been you. Now, as I promised, let me share with you a transformative practice that I've developed for my patients. I call it the dialogue with the shadow. It's a method designed to help you reconnect with the parts of yourself that you've ignored, silenced, or abandoned. Find a quiet place where you can be alone for at least 30 minutes. Bring paper and a pen. Close your eyes and take a few deep breaths. Now imagine that in front of you sits another version of yourself. But this version is not the one you show to the world. It's the part of you that's been forgotten, suppressed, or denied. The part that's tired of giving everything away. Look at this version of yourself with compassion, without judgment, and ask aloud or in your mind, what do you need from me? What have I been denying you? Then, open your eyes and write down the first thing that comes to mind. Don't filter it. Don't judge it. Just write. This is the voice of your shadow, the part of you that has been waiting patiently to be heard. Continue the dialogue. Ask questions and let the answers flow naturally. Listen to what this rejected part of you has to say. It might be painful. It might reveal hidden resentments, unmet needs, or long-abandoned dreams. But it can also be profoundly liberating. Do this exercise daily for at least 2 weeks and observe what begins to change. Notice how your dreams evolve. Notice how you begin to make different choices, how you start to set boundaries, and how you begin to honor yourself in ways that once seemed impossible. This practice is the first step toward integration. It's the beginning of your individuation process. It's how you start to learn to love yourself after years of exhaustion. Let me leave you with a final reflection. Your exhaustion is not an enemy. It's a teacher. It's your psyche showing you that you've been living a life that isn't fully yours. And within that exhaustion, within that breaking point, lies the opportunity to be reborn, to rebuild yourself from a place of authenticity rather than obligation. Because at the end of your life, the question will not be how much you gave to others. The real question will be, did you have the courage to live your own life? Did you honor your true self? Did you love the person you were at your deepest core? If this message has resonated with you, share it with someone who may need to hear it. Subscribe to the channel, because together we will continue to explore the mysteries of the unconscious, the archetypes that shape our existence, and the practical tools for the path of individuation. Leave a comment and share your experience. Have you reached that point of exhaustion? What is your shadow trying to tell you? I am here to walk with you on this journey back to yourself. And remember, when you're tired of giving everything away, it's not the end, it's the beginning. It's the moment when you finally learn to love yourself.
When you look inside yourself and feel an emptiness, it's easy for that feeling to paralyze you. It may seem like something is missing, like there's a space that nothing and no one can fill. But Carl Jung, with his deep wisdom about the human soul, taught us that this emptiness is not an enemy. It is a doorway that, if you choose to walk through it, can lead you to the most wonderful things life has to offer. This void is not an accident, nor is it a sign of weakness or failure. On the contrary, it is a manifestation of your unconscious, calling out to you, showing you that something within you is ready to evolve, to transform. Jung believed that this feeling is a sign that the soul is seeking connection, authenticity, and fulfillment. It is a reminder that life is not just about what happens outside of us, but about what is unfolding in the deepest parts of our being. Throughout life, we all face moments when we feel disconnected, lost. Perhaps after a loss, a failure, or even in the middle of a seemingly perfect routine. Jung explained that these moments are essential because they force us to stop and look within. It is in these moments that our unconscious speaks to us, not with words, but with sensations, symbols, and dreams. Have you ever felt misunderstood or out of place, even in the company of others? That feeling is not a coincidence. It is your unconscious showing you that there's a part of you that needs to be heard. In our culture, we often try to fill that void with distractions. Social media, work, superficial relationships. But these temporary solutions do nothing more than widen the gap between who we are and who we wish to become. Jung believed that the unconscious is like a deep ocean, full of riches but also of shadows. And this is where the secret lies. Those shadows are not your enemies. They are parts of yourself that you have ignored, repressed, or feared. They are the missing pieces of your soul's puzzle. When you feel an emptiness, what is truly happening is that these forgotten parts are crying out for your attention. They don't want to harm you. They want to help you grow, to become whole. Imagine for a moment that your life is a mirror. Everything you see in others, whether love, admiration, or even rejection, is a reflection of something within you. Jung called this projection. Every emotion, every judgment you have towards others is a clue about what is happening in your inner world. And this is where you can begin to transform that emptiness into something extraordinary. The key is to face those shadows, to embrace them. Yes, it can be uncomfortable and sometimes painful, but Jung taught that there is no light without darkness, no growth without confrontation. It is in the moment you decide to look within instead of running from that emptiness that you begin to experience real change. You start to discover who you truly are, beyond the masks you have built to please others. That emptiness you feel is not a curse. It is a call. It is your soul inviting you to let go of what no longer serves you, to leave behind what does not resonate with your truth. Jung said that the process of individuation, the journey toward becoming your authentic self, is not easy, but it is profoundly liberating. Every step you take toward that authenticity opens doors to more meaningful relationships, a fuller life, and a deeper connection with yourself. When you choose to face that emptiness and walk towards the unknown, something extraordinary begins to happen. Jung spoke of synchronicity, that feeling that the universe starts to conspire in your favor. The right people come into your life. Opportunities appear, and problems that once seemed insurmountable begin to fade. But this does not happen because the external world has changed. It happens because you have changed. Synchronicity is not magic or coincidence. It is the reflection of your inner work. When you integrate your shadows, when you listen to your intuition and align with your true essence, the external world responds to that energy. It is as if the universe had been waiting for you to take that first step, ready to reward you with experiences that nourish your soul. However, reaching this point requires courage. It means accepting that you don't have all the answers, and that it's okay not to have them. It means allowing yourself to be vulnerable, to recognize your fears, and to embrace them. Jung used to say that growth does not occur in comfort, but in chaos. It is in those moments of uncertainty and transformation where you truly discover what you are made of. That emptiness you sometimes feel is often a signal, an indication that you are ready for something bigger, something beyond what you have known so far. But in order to take that leap, you must first release the weight you have been carrying. Think about it. How many times have you held on to a relationship, a job, or a habit simply because it was familiar, because it felt safe? Jung teaches us that clinging to the old out of fear of the unknown only prolongs suffering. Instead, when you find the courage to let go, you create space for something new and extraordinary to enter your life. The process of releasing is not always easy. It may involve leaving behind people who once meant everything to you, abandoning goals that no longer resonate with who you are, or even questioning beliefs that have been ingrained in you your entire life. But here lies the secret. Every time you let go, you free up energy, energy that you can use to build something that truly inspires you, something that aligns with your deepest purpose. Jung believed that each of us has a unique purpose, something only we can discover by turning inward. This purpose is not found in the noise of the external world, but in the quiet whispers of your soul. It's that deep sense of peace and clarity you experience when you're doing what you love, when you're surrounded by people who inspire you to be your true self. But how can you find that purpose amidst the chaos? According to Jung, the answer lies in listening to your unconscious, your dreams, your intuitions, even the things that irritate or frighten you, are all clues pointing to what truly matters to you. By exploring these aspects, you begin to decipher the language of your soul. Have you ever noticed that the most painful experiences are often the ones that teach you the most valuable lessons? This is no coincidence. Jung believed that suffering has a purpose. It is not there to punish you, but to awaken you. Every challenge you face offers you an opportunity to grow, to learn something about yourself that you did not know before. And it is this learning that transforms emptiness into fulfillment. Imagine yourself as a tree. In order to grow, you must first develop deep roots. These roots are formed in difficult moments, in trials that force you to look inward and strengthen yourself. But once those roots are firmly planted, you can grow upwards, extend yourself toward the light, and eventually bloom. This is the natural cycle of life, a balance between darkness and light, between emptiness and fullness. When you begin to see emptiness not as a problem, but as an opportunity, everything changes. You no longer feel like a victim of circumstances. Instead, you become the creator of your own reality. And this is where the true power of Jung's teachings lies, in reminding you that although you cannot control everything that happens in the external world, you can always choose how to respond. That feeling of emptiness, that longing for something more, is your soul asking you to trust the process, to trust that even if you cannot see it clearly right now, something wonderful is on its way. And when you decide to trust, when you choose to open yourself to the unknown, you realize that the emptiness was never your enemy. It was a teacher that was always there, guiding you toward the best version of yourself. Integrating Carl Jung's teachings into your daily life does not require grand gestures or immediate changes. It is a gradual process, a constant exploration that begins with small steps. Every day presents you with opportunities to reconnect with yourself, to listen to the signs of your unconscious, and to embrace life from a place of authenticity and purpose. An excellent starting point is to pay close attention to your dreams. John believed that dreams are the most direct means of communication between the unconscious and consciousness. Although they often seem confusing or irrelevant, they are actually full of symbols that can offer you clarity about your emotions, desires, and challenges. Keeping a dream journal can be incredibly revealing. By writing down everything you remember from your dreams, even the smallest detail, you can begin to notice recurring patterns, symbols, and messages that guide you toward greater self-awareness. For example, you might dream of a blocked path, flowing water, or unfamiliar people. These symbols should not be interpreted literally, but rather as reflections of what is happening within you. A blocked path could represent fear or resistance to change. Water may symbolize your emotions or the flow of life. And unknown people could be aspects of yourself that you have yet to explore. By analyzing these dreams, not through rigid logic but through intuition, you can begin to decipher what your unconscious is trying to tell you. Another essential aspect of living according to Jung's teachings is embracing your shadow. This is one of the most challenging yet transformative ideas in his psychology. The shadow consists of all the parts of yourself that you have rejected or repressed because they do not align with the image you wish to project to the world. It could involve emotions like anger, fear, or sadness, or even aspects of your personality that you have deemed unacceptable. Introspection helps you identify patterns in your behavior, question limiting beliefs, and discover what truly matters to you. It also allows you to tune into your intuition, that inner voice that always knows what is best for you, even when it gets drowned out by the noise of the external world. Listening to your intuition does not mean acting impulsively. Rather, it means trusting that deep wisdom within you that often goes unnoticed. Jung also emphasized the importance of finding balance between the conscious and the unconscious, between the external world and your inner world. A fulfilling life is not just about chasing external goals or meeting societal expectations, but about honoring your emotional, spiritual, and psychological needs. This includes dedicating time to activities that nourish your soul, whether through art, nature, meditation, or any practice that reconnects you with your essence. On this journey, it is also crucial to remember that the emptiness you sometimes feel is not a mistake or a flaw. It is an invitation to grow, explore, and discover. Every time you choose to face it instead of ignoring it, you move closer to your authenticity. And by living from that place of truth, you not only transform your own life, but also inspire others to do the same. When you ignore your shadow, it does not disappear. It finds ways to manifest in your relationships, your decisions, and your recurring patterns. For example, you might find yourself in constant conflict with certain people or situations. These experiences are not coincidences. They are opportunities to recognize what you have been avoiding within yourself. Jung taught that by confronting your shadow, you not only release the burden of the repressed, but also uncover a hidden treasure, a deeper understanding and acceptance of yourself. How can you begin working with your shadow? A practical exercise is to observe your intense emotional reactions toward others. Ask yourself, what irritates me the most about this person? What quality in them do I find most unbearable? Often, what we criticize or reject in others is a reflection of something we have not yet accepted in ourselves. By bringing these emotions to light, you can begin to integrate them and free yourself from their unconscious control. In addition to exploring your dreams and working with your shadow, cultivating the habit of daily introspection is essential. We live in a world full of distractions where it is easy to lose connection with oneself. But dedicating even a few minutes a day to reflection can make a significant difference. This can be as simple as sitting in silence, observing your thoughts, or writing in a journal about how you felt throughout the day and why. Ultimately, Jung believed in the power of community. While inner work is deeply personal, you don't have to go through it alone. Sharing your experiences, seeking support from people who resonate with you, and building authentic connections can be profoundly healing. A community that accepts you as you are, values your authenticity, and encourages you to grow can become a fundamental pillar in your journey toward a fulfilled life. One of Carl Jung's most profound concepts is the process of individuation. This term describes a path to becoming your true self. Not the version others expect of you, but the complete being who integrates both light and shadow. Jung saw individuation as the highest purpose of human life. It is not about achieving superficial perfection, but about reconciling the opposites within you, your desires and fears, strengths and weaknesses. The process of individuation begins when you choose to be honest with yourself. This means looking at all parts of your being without judgment, even those that feel uncomfortable or painful. For example, you might realize that you have been avoiding certain conflicts out of fear of rejection, or that you have suppressed your creativity because you are afraid of not being good enough. These realizations can be difficult at first, but they are crucial steps toward living authentically. Jung explained that individuation is not a linear path. There will be times when you feel stuck, when you doubt yourself, or even when you want to give up. However, every step, even the smallest one, brings you closer to a deeper sense of wholeness. This journey requires patience, self-compassion, and a deep trust that in the end, every effort is worthwhile. A powerful tool for advancing in individuation is the concept of synchronicity, something Jung defined as meaningful coincidences that cannot be explained by causality, but have a profound impact on your life. These experiences often occur when you are aligned with your purpose and open to the messages of the universe. For example, just as you decide to take a new professional path, you might meet someone who unexpectedly offers you an opportunity. Or perhaps while reflecting on a personal dilemma, you come across a book or a phrase that seems to speak directly to your situation. These synchronicities are not mere accidents. They are signs that you are on the right path. For Jung, paying attention to these coincidences was a way to strengthen the connection between your unconscious and conscious mind. But to notice these signs, you need to be present, receptive, and willing to let go of old ways of thinking that limit you. At this point, you may wonder, how can I become more receptive to synchronicity and the individuation process in my daily life? Here are some practices you can incorporate. Embrace change as a natural part of life. The emptiness you often feel is an invitation to transformation, a sign that something in your life is no longer aligned with you. Instead of resisting it, try to see it as an opportunity. Jung believed that change is the engine of growth. Every time you choose to adapt rather than cling to the familiar, you take a step forward. Practice self-observation without judgment. Throughout the day, take moments to observe your thoughts, emotions, and reactions. Ask yourself, what is the situation revealing about me? For instance, if you feel frustrated with someone, reflect on which part of you is being triggered. This exercise is not about blaming yourself, but about understanding yourself better. Explore your dreams and personal symbols. As we mentioned before, your dreams are a window into your unconscious. But beyond dreams, you can also find meaning in the symbols that appear in your daily life. Perhaps an image, a song, or a recurring event catches your attention. Ask yourself, what does this represent for me? What is it trying to tell me? Surround yourself with authentic people. Individuation does not mean isolating yourself, but rather surrounding yourself with people who support you on your journey. Seek relationships that inspire you to be yourself, not those that push you to conform. Jung believed that authentic connections are fundamental to our psychological and spiritual well-being. Dedicate time to creativity. Creativity is a way to engage in dialogue with your unconscious. You don't need to be a professional artist to benefit from it. Write, draw, sing, dance, or simply do something that makes you feel alive. These activities not only help you express yourself, but can also reveal aspects of yourself that you were unaware of. Jung maintained that by integrating these practices into your life, you would begin to notice profound changes. Relationships become more meaningful, decisions become clearer, and the feeling of emptiness starts to transform into a sense of purpose and fulfillment. Above all, you will begin to feel a deeper connection with yourself and the world around you. The void, that uncomfortable space we often try to avoid, is, in reality, a gift in disguise. It is a starting point for something new, something wonderful that is about to arrive. When you choose to face it instead of running away, you realize that you are not alone in this process. There is a greater force, a universal order guiding and supporting you, as long as you choose to listen. Jung reminds us that there are no shortcuts to wholeness. The path may be challenging, but it is also filled with beauty, discoveries, and growth. Every time you choose to embrace the void, every time you integrate a shadow or respond to a synchronicity, you are moving toward the life you were meant to live, a life where you can be authentic, whole, and deeply connected to your purpose. The next time you feel that emptiness, do not fear it. Instead, ask yourself, what message is it trying to give me? What part of me is ready to bloom? And remember, as Carl Jung once said, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. When the void manifests, we often interpret it as a sign of loss or failure. But in reality, that feeling is a reminder that something needs to be transformed. Resisting the void only prolongs discomfort, while accepting its presence opens the door to new possibilities. Carl Jung taught us that the first step to overcoming this state is allowing yourself to fully feel it. Instead of distracting yourself or avoiding it, give yourself permission to explore it, to sit with it and ask what it wants to reveal to you. The void is not something you need to fill with external things. It is not about getting a new job, a new relationship, or any other superficial achievement. What you truly need is to reconnect with yourself, with that part of your being that you may have neglected or repressed. Jung described the unconscious as a vast ocean containing the answers we seek. But to access it, we must have the courage to dive into its depths. When you begin to explore your emptiness, you realize that it is not empty at all. It is full of potential, of creative energy waiting to be released. Many of the greatest works of art, discoveries, and personal transformations have emerged from moments when someone faced their void instead of running from it. This process is not always comfortable, but it is profoundly liberating. It is an opportunity to let go of what no longer serves you and welcome what truly matters. On this journey, it is important to remember that you are not alone. The void may make you feel isolated, but it is actually a universal experience. At some point in their lives, everyone faces this sensation. Recognizing this not only helps you feel connected to others, but also allows you to be more compassionate with yourself. Instead of judging yourself for feeling lost, you can begin to see yourself as someone undergoing a transformation. Transformation does not happen overnight. It is a gradual process that requires patience and commitment. But every small step you take, every moment you dedicate to listening to your inner self, brings you closer to fulfillment. This journey is not linear. There will be ups and downs, days when you feel like you're making progress, and others when it seems like you're moving backward. But even those setbacks are part of the process. They teach you valuable lessons and help you build the resilience necessary to keep going. One of the most powerful things you can do during this journey is to learn to trust yourself. Jung believed that within each of us, there is an innate wisdom, an internal compass that always knows the next step. But to hear it, you need to silence the external noise and pay attention to your own thoughts, emotions, and intuitions. This self-trust not only helps you navigate the emptiness, but also allows you to live more authentically. When you begin to trust yourself, you realize that you don't need to search for answers outside of you. The answers you seek are already within, waiting to be uncovered. This realization can be incredibly empowering. You understand that you are not a victim of your circumstances, but the creator of your own reality. Even though you cannot control everything that happens around you, you can always choose how to respond to it. This choice, this ability to respond instead of merely reacting, is what truly defines your experience of life. Jung teaches us that every time you choose to face the void, to confront your shadows and fears, you are taking a step toward individuation, toward becoming the person you are truly meant to be. This process doesn't just transform your life. It also impacts those around you. When you live from a place of authenticity, you inspire others to do the same. And this is where real magic happens. When you choose to embrace your true self, the universe responds. You begin to notice synchronicities, moments when everything seems to align perfectly. These experiences are not coincidences. They are reflections of your inner alignment. When you are at peace with yourself, the outer world begins to reflect that peace. The right people enter your life, opportunities appear, and problems that once seemed insurmountable find their solutions. But this journey is not just about what you receive from the external world. The true reward of this process is inner peace, that feeling of being at home within yourself, no matter what happens around you. It is the certainty that, even when the path is uncertain, you always have the ability to find your own direction. That confidence, that deep connection with yourself, is what truly transforms emptiness into fulfillment. When you reach this point, you realize that the void was never something to fear. It was simply a reminder, an invitation to reconnect with yourself and your purpose. And by accepting that invitation, by embracing the void instead of resisting it, you discover something profound, that everything you were searching for outside of you had been within you all along. This journey of understanding and integrating your emptiness is not just a gift to yourself. It is also an opportunity to impact the world around you. When you transform yourself, you inspire others to do the same. Authenticity is contagious. By living in your truth, you become a beacon for those still searching for their own path. Carl Jung taught us that personal transformation has the power to influence the collective. Every act of courage, every step toward authenticity, creates ripples that extend beyond you. Think about how many lives you can touch by sharing your story, your lessons, and your journey. By speaking about your path, you allow others to see that they are not alone, that they too can face their shadows and discover their own fulfillment. Remember, transformation is not a destination. It is a continuous journey of self-discovery and growth. Every step you take, no matter how small, is shaping the person you are becoming. Trust in your path, trust in yourself, and know that you are capable of more than you can imagine. The universe is always listening, always responding to the energy you put out. When you embrace your authenticity, when you walk with courage and conviction, life unfolds in ways you never thought possible. Doors open, opportunities appear, and you realize that the power to create your reality has always been within you. So take that step. Face the unknown with confidence. Embrace your inner strength, because the greatest version of yourself is waiting on the other side of fear, ready to shine, ready to inspire, and ready to transform the world, one choice at a time. You are not alone in this journey. You are part of something greater, something powerful. And as you rise, you will help others rise with you. The world needs your light. Now is the time to shine.
In the next few minutes, you are going to discover why the most awakened and accomplished human beings on this planet have all passed through moments where everything seemed lost, and how they used precisely those dark nights of the soul to build lives that went far beyond anything they could have imagined. If at this very moment you feel like you can't go on, if you've reached a point where every door seems to have closed and the path ahead looks like a void, then this is the message your unconscious has been waiting to hear. Because what you are experiencing is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of your most powerful transformation. Did you know that almost every person who achieved extraordinary growth in their life once reached a point of complete inner collapse, a moment when their old self could no longer survive? But here lies the crucial difference. While most give up at that threshold, the few who transcend it discovered a secret that changes everything. And that secret is what you are about to uncover, step by step, in a way that is practical and profoundly personal, regardless of your age, your past, or your current circumstances. My name is Carl Jung, and through decades of observing the human psyche, I have witnessed transformations that defy reason. I have seen the death and rebirth of souls who believed all meaning was gone. And let me tell you something with absolute certainty. If you are hearing this message right now, it is because your story is not ending. It is being rewritten by your deepest self. There was a time in my life when I, too, found myself at the edge of despair, when all external forms of meaning collapsed and I faced the abyss of my own unconscious. I remember sitting in complete solitude, watching life pass me by, and wondering if perhaps I had failed at existing. But in that silent agony, I discovered something that changed everything. I realized I had been waiting for the outer world to change so that I could finally feel whole inside. I had been waiting for the right moment, the ideal conditions, the golden opportunity. Yet the truth is that the perfect moment arrives exactly when everything seems lost, because that is when the ego finally breaks and the soul, no longer imprisoned by illusion, begins to awaken. Imagine this through a metaphor. Picture yourself at the bottom of a deep well. From that depth, the only possible direction is upward. Yet most people, when they reach that bottom, obsess over how dark or deep it is instead of looking for the first stone to climb. They fixate on the problem rather than the ascent. And here lies the first sacred key I want you to understand. Your current situation is not your final destiny. It is only your point of initiation. Have you ever wondered why some people rise again after devastation, while others remain buried beneath it? The difference does not lie in what happened to them, but in how they chose to interpret it, and in the inner decision they made immediately after life appeared to destroy their plans. I once studied the story of Viktor Frankl, who survived the unspeakable horrors of the concentration camps. He discovered what he called the last of all human freedoms, the ability to choose our attitude toward any circumstance, no matter how unbearable it may seem. Even when stripped of everything, a human being can still decide the meaning they give to their suffering. Imagine for a moment how your life would change if you began to see your current problems not as punishments, but as initiations, sacred trials that are developing emotional and spiritual muscles you never knew existed. They are shaping a strength, a character, and a depth of soul that comfort could never provide. They are preparing you for a level of consciousness you could not have reached otherwise. But here's something you must understand. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Pain is the natural consequence of loss, but suffering is the choice to keep reliving that pain, replaying the story, and identifying yourself with the wound. What would happen if, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you began to ask, "For what purpose is this happening within me? What lesson is life trying to reveal? What strength is being born through this experience? What part of you is dying so that a greater version of you may rise?" Every crisis you experience is a symbolic death, an alchemical process through which your old identity burns so that the authentic self can emerge purified. I once met a woman during a seminar who was going through one of these symbolic deaths. She had lost her job, her marriage, and her sense of purpose. She told me she felt like an empty vessel, too old to begin again. I told her what I am telling you now. Nothing is ever truly lost. It is simply being transformed. Your life has not ended. It has paused so that your soul can rewrite its design. Within you exists potential that remains dormant until adversity shakes it awake. 6 months later, she had rebuilt her life, discovering gifts she never imagined she possessed. 2 years after that, she was no longer surviving. She was radiantly alive, guided by a sense of purpose that only suffering had been able to awaken. Pause for a moment and repeat this truth. My current situation is not permanent. It is transitional. Everything in existence is transient. The good moments are temporary, and the painful ones are temporary too. The question is not whether life will change. The question is, in what direction will it evolve from here? And that depends entirely on your inner decision, made in this moment of awareness. Now let me share with you what I call the Phoenix Principle. Have you heard of the myth of the phoenix, the sacred bird that when it feels its life cycle has ended, builds its own nest, sets itself on fire, and from its ashes rises renewed, more luminous than before? That myth is not fantasy. It is the symbolic truth of the human psyche. Perhaps you feel like parts of you have died. Perhaps your dreams have turned to ashes. Perhaps the person you used to be no longer exists. And you are right. That former version of you no longer exists. But from those ashes, a truer, wiser, stronger version of your being is waiting to be born. Here lies the essence of Jung's teaching. The phoenix does not mourn its ashes. It does not cling to what it once was. It does not compare itself to those who never had to walk through the fire. The phoenix uses its ashes as sacred material, the foundation for its transformation. It rises, not in spite of the fire, but because of it. And so can you. Are you truly willing to do the same? Are you willing to stop clinging to the version of your life that once was and begin consciously building what your life can become from this very moment onward? Because let me tell you something that, as Carl Jung would say, defines every genuine transformation of the soul. The most meaningful stories always contain a chapter where everything seems lost. That chapter is not the end. It is the sacred turning point that makes the entire story worth telling. Think about how this applies to your own life right now. From what ashes could you rise again? Which parts of your old identity must die completely so that something new and more authentic can be born? What version of yourself is waiting to emerge through this very experience? Jung taught that in every descent there is a seed of rebirth, and this is where your transformation begins. Now, I want to share with you something I call the law of emotional reversibility. It's one of the most powerful psychological principles that exist, though few people understand it deeply. The law states that if you act as though you already are the person you wish to become, eventually your inner reality will align with that outer action. If you act as though you already possess confidence, confidence will begin to grow within you. If you act as though you are already successful, life will start opening the doors that match that vibration. This is not about pretending. It's about behaving in harmony with the identity of the being you are becoming. Ask yourself, how would a person who has already transcended my current struggle act? What choices would they make each morning? How would they speak to themselves? What would they invest their time and energy in? Imagine how your life would transform if, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you began asking, "How can this serve my growth?" Instead of wondering, "When will this pain end?" you began asking, "What can I do today to move one step closer to the life I want to create?" I once met a man, let's call him Tom, who lost everything during an economic collapse. For months, he lived in his sister's basement, humiliated and defeated. I asked him, "Tom, how would a successful man of your age, temporarily living in his sister's basement, behave each day?" He got defensive at first, but then he reflected and said, "Well, I suppose he wouldn't stay in pajamas watching TV until noon. He'd probably wake up early, dress as if going to an important meeting, and spend the day searching for opportunities or learning new skills." I told him to start doing exactly that, to wake up at dawn, shower, dress as if he were the CEO of his own personal recovery, and dedicate his days to rebuilding. Within 3 weeks, Tom found part-time work. Within 2 months, he had a full-time job. 6 months later, he had his own apartment, and a year later, he had started his own consulting business. Jung would say that Tom didn't merely change his circumstances, he changed the archetype he was living from. Because your subconscious mind cannot distinguish between what you vividly imagine and what you physically experience. If you consistently act as the person you wish to be, resilient, capable, and determined, your subconscious will begin to organize your entire reality to match that new identity. It will draw opportunities, people, and synchronicities that you couldn't see before. But there's something even deeper that Jung understood. Crises are rarely punishments. They are forms of guidance. What appears as tragedy may actually be a hidden blessing, forcing you to leave a path that no longer served your evolution. Have you ever considered that what you are experiencing right now might be exactly what your soul needs to discover who you truly are and what you're capable of? Maybe the life you had before as comfortable as it seemed, was keeping you trapped in a false sense of safety, far from your true potential. I once heard the story of a high-level executive who was fired after 20 years in the same company. He felt betrayed and lost. Yet 6 months later, using his experience and knowledge, he built a consulting business that gave him more income, freedom, and purpose than he had ever known. Later he said, "Losing that job was the best thing that ever happened to me, even though at first it felt like the worst." So this week, I want you to practice something. Each morning, before you even rise from bed, ask yourself, how might this situation be serving my evolution? Even if I can't yet see how. You don't need an immediate answer. Simply keep the question open and allow insights to emerge gradually. Now let's talk about something even more crucial. What Jung might call the moment of individuation. The power of the decision point. Every person who has ever changed their destiny has reached a moment where they made an irrevocable decision that things would never be the same again, no matter how long it took, no matter how much effort it required. It's the moment you stop being a victim of circumstance and become the conscious architect of your fate. This moment doesn't arrive when conditions improve. It arrives when you decide they will. It doesn't appear when you have all the answers. It appears when you decide you will find them. It doesn't come when you feel strong. It comes when you decide to create strength from within. So I ask you now, are you ready for this to be your moment? Are you ready to decide that your story doesn't end here? That this chapter, no matter how painful, is not the conclusion, but the beginning of your rebirth? Pause for a moment and think. What would that irreversible decision look like for you today? What promise could you make to yourself right now that would completely alter the trajectory of your life? I'm not talking about vague goals like, "I want to be happier." I'm talking about concrete, measurable commitments. For example, I decide that in the next 90 days, I will apply to 5 new opportunities each week until I rebuild my stability. Or I decide to dedicate 1 hour every day for the next 6 months to developing the skill that will open a new path for me. Or I decide to read 1 book on personal transformation each month and apply 1 practical lesson from it to my daily life. The key lies in specificity and unconditional commitment. Not, "I'll try," not, "I'll do my best," but "I will do this," no matter what obstacles appear along the way. And remember, as Jung often reminded his students, transformation doesn't happen in giant leaps, but through small, conscious steps repeated every day. This is what I call the technique of daily small steps. When practiced with faith and persistence, it becomes the bridge between who you are now and who you are destined to become. The idea is simple, yet profoundly transformative. Identify the smallest possible action you can take each day that brings you closer to the life you want to create. Then, commit to doing that action every single day without exception, regardless of how you feel. Why does this work? Because as Carl Jung would explain, when the psyche is in crisis, the conscious mind becomes paralyzed by the immensity of change. Yet the unconscious still responds to small, consistent acts of will. We may not be able to transform everything at once, but we can always take 1 small step. And that is where the alchemy begins. Those daily, seemingly insignificant steps generate momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence generates more action, and repeated action produces tangible results. Results awaken hope, and hope becomes the inner fire that inspires even greater transformation. What could be your smallest daily step? Perhaps it's rising 30 minutes earlier to reconnect with your purpose before the noise of the world takes over. Perhaps it's making one call each day to someone who might guide you toward a solution. Maybe it's writing a single page in a journal to process your emotions and bring clarity to your thoughts. Or maybe it's walking for 20 minutes to strengthen both your body and your mind. The size of the step is irrelevant. The power lies in consistency. Because once you form the habit of taking daily action toward your recovery, your unconscious mind begins to cooperate with your intention. It starts seeking opportunities, noticing details that once went unseen, and connecting patterns that once seemed random. You begin to attract circumstances, people, and synchronicities aligned with your new direction. Imagine how it would feel to know that every day, no matter how dark or difficult, you have done at least one thing that moves you closer to your rebirth. That sense of daily progress, even if minimal, can mean the difference between sinking into despair or remaining afloat until the tides of life shift in your favor. Reflect on your present life. What is the smallest yet most meaningful action you could take daily for the next 30 days? Write it down. Commit to it fully. Begin today, not tomorrow, not Monday, not when you feel ready. Jung believed that true change begins the moment you act, not the moment you think about acting. There is something else Jung observed in those who managed to rise from seemingly impossible situations. They developed what he might have called strategic optimism. This doesn't mean pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It doesn't mean denying the reality of your struggle. It means choosing, consciously and deliberately, to focus on possibilities rather than limitations, on solutions rather than problems, on the future you can still create rather than the past you can no longer change. Strategic optimism rests on a core belief. No matter how difficult your circumstances are, options always exist. There is always something you can do, some next step you can take. You might not see all the paths right now, and you might not know exactly what to do, but you trust your ability to find the way. Jung taught that the human being is infinitely adaptive and creative when united with the power of their inner self. What if each morning you asked yourself, "What are my options today?" instead of, "Why don't I have any?" How would your energy shift? What hidden possibilities might begin to emerge from beneath the weight of your worries? Jung often spoke of the individual's confrontation with despair as the beginning of transformation. When you feel trapped, it is not the world that confines you. It is your mind's refusal to imagine alternatives. The moment you remember that you do have choices, the prison doors of your psyche begin to open. So take a sheet of paper and write at the top, "My options are." Then, without judgment, list every possibility that comes to mind. Moving to a new place, learning a skill, asking for help, reducing expenses, changing careers, reconnecting with someone from your past. Write them all down. The purpose is not to find the perfect answer, but to remind your unconscious that freedom still exists. Now let me share something Jung would have loved. A simple technique with extraordinary power. The question of transformation. Each time you feel lost, hopeless, or overwhelmed, ask yourself this: what is the best that could come from this situation? This question has a profound psychological effect. It shifts your consciousness from the mode of problem to the mode of possibility. When your mind is trapped in problem mode, it looks for proof that things are bad, impossible, doomed. But when you change the question, your mind starts seeking lessons, opportunities, and potential blessings. This is not about denying pain or pretending life is easy. It's about widening your perception to include the unseen light within darkness. Jung taught that the gold we seek often lies hidden in the shadow. From the most painful experiences can emerge the greatest revelations, but only if you keep your mind open to that sacred possibility. Have you ever thought about this? Perhaps this crisis is forcing you to develop strengths you would have never discovered in comfort. Perhaps it's reconnecting you with parts of yourself you had forgotten existed. Perhaps it's preparing you for an opportunity you cannot yet see, but that is already on its way. Perhaps it's teaching you the lessons you'll need for the next chapter of your life. Practice it this week. Every time you feel yourself sinking into negative thoughts about your situation, pause consciously and ask yourself, what is the best possible outcome that could emerge from this? And then allow your mind to explore that question with genuine curiosity. Carl Jung often reminded us that what we resist the most contains the seed of our transformation. I want to talk to you about something that Jung would have called the power of active presence. One reason why crises drain us emotionally is that our minds tend to dwell in two places that consume our energy: the past, filled with regret, and the future, filled with anxiety. But your real power exists only in the present, in this exact moment, in what you can do right now. Active presence means recognizing that even though you cannot change what has already happened, and even though you cannot control everything that will happen, you can take one specific action in this moment that will improve your situation, even slightly. And that single action creates a ripple effect that influences your future in ways you cannot yet predict. So, what is the most important action you could take right now, today, within the next 2 hours, that could improve your current situation, even a little? I'm not talking about solving all your problems today. I'm talking about taking one step, making a call, writing an email, having a conversation, applying for something, learning something new, organizing something, cleaning something. Any action that makes you feel you're moving forward instead of being stuck. The magic of active presence is that it restores your sense of personal control. When you take action, when you do something constructive, when you move the needle even slightly, your subconscious mind receives a powerful message that you are not a passive victim of circumstances, but an active agent of change in your own life. Imagine how your energy and perspective would change if every single day you took just one specific action that brought you closer to solving one of your current challenges. You don't need to fix everything today. You only need to do something today, and something again tomorrow, and something again the next day. The problems that once felt overwhelming when seen as a whole become manageable when approached one action at a time. Now, before we end, I want to share with you the most important lesson I have learned in my life, the one that has allowed countless people to transform theirs. Your ability to recover, to reinvent yourself, to begin again, has no expiration date. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how long you've been stuck in a difficult situation. It doesn't matter how many times you've failed. Your ability to create a better life remains intact in this very moment. I've seen people start successful projects at 70. I've seen people completely change careers at 55. I've seen people find the love of their lives after devastating divorces at 60. I've seen people discover hidden talents they never knew they had after losing jobs they held for decades. Life doesn't end when something goes wrong. Life merely pauses, reorganizes itself, and then continues, often in a better direction than before. But that only happens if you have the courage to keep writing your story when it seems like the ink has run dry. So here you are, in this exact moment, listening to these words. And I want you to know that the fact you've made it this far, that you've spent these minutes searching for answers, for hope, for tools to improve your situation, tells me something extraordinary about you. You haven't given up. There is still fire within you. There is still fight in your spirit. You still believe, even faintly, that your life can improve. And that small spark of belief is enough to begin your rebirth. Because the most profound transformations rarely begin with noise or certainty. They begin with a silent, intimate, deeply personal decision that things are going to change, that you are going to change, that this is not your final chapter. In the coming days, weeks, and months, there will be moments when you'll feel tempted to give up again. There will be moments when old thoughts of despair will try to return. When that happens, remember this moment. Remember these words. Remember that you have tools, that you have choices, that you have the power to write the next chapters of your story differently. And please, return to this channel often, subscribe, and activate the notification bell. Because my purpose is to continue bringing you the most powerful tools, the most effective strategies, and the most genuine inspiration so that you can reach your highest potential no matter where you are starting from.